I woke up in the living room flooded with light. The autumn sun shone through the thin curtains, spreading a soft golden hue over the white walls. I lay still, listening, waiting for Sophie's small footsteps, for Jacob's familiar cries, or for the usual sound of the television in the morning. There was nothing. Only a strange silence enveloping the house. I sat up, my heart beating slow and heavy. A thought flashed through my mind. Maybe they had let me sleep a little longer. But then I told myself, children do not know anything about sleeping in. I stood up and stepped out of the room with a vague sense of unease. The morning air in the house felt strange, so quiet that I could hear the ticking of the clock in the living room. I went down to the kitchen. The place where Jennifer usually made coffee every morning was cold and still. There was no coffee cup on the table, no smell of toast, no grinder roaring to life as it always did. I called out for Michael, called for Jennifer, called for both grandchildren. My voice echoed, then was swallowed by the emptiness. The house seemed deserted. I walked to the children's room. The door stood wide open, the beds neatly made. I looked around and froze. Their toys had disappeared. The robot I bought for Jacob was gone. The doll Sophie held every night was missing too. It was as if everything had been cleared away before a long trip. I stood there in silence, my thoughts growing tangled. One question ran through my mind. Where had they gone that they took all their things with them? I did not remember hearing about any trip. I hurried upstairs. Michael and Jennifer's room was bare. Their largest suitcase was gone. My heart beat faster. My throat tightened. Maybe they had left a message, a scrap of paper, something that would help me understand what was happening. I searched around the desk, opened each drawer, lifted every pillow. Then I saw a blue plane ticket stuck under the bottom of the dresser. I bent down and picked it up, my hand trembling. The print said clearly that the destination was Hawaii, and the flight had departed at 9:30 p.m. yesterday. I stood still for a long time, my eyes fixed on the ticket in disbelief. Yesterday, Hawaii. I thought back to the night before. Jennifer had said the whole family was going with Michael's company to Lake Tahoe. She had given a gentle smile and said there was no cell service there, that if I called, I probably would not be able to reach them. I had nodded and reminded them to keep the kids warm. Looking back now, every detail fits into a carefully laid plan to keep me from discovering the truth. They had not only left, they had made sure I could not call, could not ask, could not stop them. I sat down on the edge of the bed. The house that had once felt peaceful now seemed like a block of cold ice. I did not cry. I only felt empty. I picked up my phone, looked at my son's name on the screen, then let out a quiet breath. No, I did not call him. I opened my contacts, found the name Eleanor, my close friend from college, and hit call. When she picked up, I spoke slowly and calmly. Ellie, they have gone away on a trip. Could you come stay with me for a few days? On the other end of the line, I heard Eleanor's voice, full of worry. A trip? Where did they go in such a hurry? Are you okay? I looked at the ticket in my hand, the early morning light shining through the window and falling across the blue paper. I answered in a level voice. They flew to Hawaii last night, and I am still here. It was as I sat there quietly staring at the plane ticket in my hand that I began to think back. Things had not really started this morning at all, but 6 months earlier, on that afternoon in the old house, when I first let my heart soften at the sweet words I would only later realize were a trap. The house was in the Mission District, where Robert and I had lived for more than 40 years. Every step of the stairs, every picture on the wall, every tile on the floor brought back the image of that man. It had only been a month since he passed. I still was not used to the feeling of being the only one left. That afternoon, Michael and Jennifer brought the 2 grandchildren over to visit. At first, the atmosphere was so warm. Sophie ran around the living room, laughing out loud. Jacob insisted that I hold him, his chubby little hands clutching my collar as if he were afraid I would disappear. I remember clearly the look in Michael's eyes then, a bit unsettled, a bit tired, but there was also something different that I could not yet name. When the children had settled down, Jennifer moved closer to me. She spoke in a gentle voice that carried a sincere worry. "Mom, now it is just you in this big house, and it holds so many memories of Dad. I am afraid you will feel lonely here and get sick. You are older now, and the stairs are slippery. It is really dangerous, Mom." Before I could answer, Michael sat down on my other side. He took my hand, squeezed it lightly, and looked at me with such tenderness. "Mom, Dad is gone now. I cannot leave you here another day. Let us sell this house and move to San Jose. I will buy a house with a yard and a place for the kids to play. You will live with us, 3 generations under one roof, less lonely for you and easier for me to take care of you." I looked out the window. The last light of the day fell on the altar where Robert's photo still stood. My heart ached. This house was my whole life. But listening to Michael, I felt myself soften. He was worried about me. The picture of an old mother happily surrounded by her grandchildren, her son able to work with peace of mind. The whole family together in a new home sounded so perfect. We moved to sit in the living room. Jennifer made tea, resting her hand lightly on my knee. She painted a rosy picture. "Do not worry, Mom. The money from selling your house that you put in, we will put your name on the title. It will be a shared home, and you will have full legal rights. There is no way you would put in the money and not have your name on it." Michael nodded in agreement. "That is right, Mom. We are a family. Everything is transparent. This is the safest investment you have ever made. You will have a nicer house and be closer to your grandchildren." I stayed silent. My hand gently brushed the hot teacup in front of me. In my mind were the old photographs, the afternoons when Robert and I sat reading the paper, the cold nights when my husband pulled the blanket over me. I had never thought I would leave this house. But then I looked at Michael and saw the earnest look in his eyes. "Mom, I need you. I need you by my side now more than ever. I want you to help me rebuild our home. Will you?" Those words brought a lump to my throat. My child was saying he needed me. After so many years of being a mother, those are the words any mother wants to hear. I took his hand and nodded. At that moment, I believed I was making the right decision. Money and a house had never mattered to me as much as love. I had already lost Robert. I did not want to lose the last connection I still had with this family. I believed that if I could live with my children and grandchildren, I would be able to find again a part of the warmth Robert had left behind. I believed. And because I believed, I agreed. I still remember clearly that everything began to change right after I signed the papers to sell the old house. The savings of a lifetime, more than 40 years of living with Robert, I transferred all of it into Michael's account in a single transaction. That day, I still believed I was doing the right thing for the family, for the grandchildren, for the future of all 3 generations. A few weeks later, I decided to bring up the house documents again. We were having dinner in the new kitchen, the warm yellow light falling on the steaming bowl of soup I had just cooked. I gathered all my courage, set my spoon down, and asked, Michael, Jennifer, when will you two take me to do the paperwork to add my name to the house title? Jennifer looked up from her phone and sighed, as if I had just interrupted something important. Her voice was full of weariness. Mom, the procedures in America are very complicated, taxes, laws, all kinds of red tape. Let us handle it. You are old now. Just rest and do not give yourself a headache over those things. Before I could say anything more, Michael cut in, his tone light, as if he were talking about the weather. Mom, it would not make any difference if your name were on it. Later on, it will just make the inheritance taxes more complicated. This house will end up going to the kids anyway. We are a family. Whose name is on it does not matter, Mom. I sat there with my hands still on the table and felt a chill run down my spine. All the earlier promises about transparency and clear legal rights now felt as if they had never existed. I looked at my two children. One kept eating with his head down, the other was scrolling on her phone. Neither of them waited for my answer. I wanted to speak up. I wanted to ask, if any name is fine, then why not mine? But then I was afraid of ruining the mood at dinner, afraid they would see me as a suspicious, unreasonable old woman. I had already given them all my money. There was nothing left in my hands. I told myself maybe they really just wanted what was best for me. Maybe I was overthinking it. I was old now, too sensitive. But my heart was not at ease. Jennifer slid the bowl toward me and gave a faint smile. Do not overthink it, Mom. We will take care of everything for you from A to Z. All you need to do is enjoy your old age. I picked up the soup spoon and took a small sip. The taste was familiar, something I had cooked myself, but there was no warmth left in it. Hearing Jennifer speak, I felt as if someone had just pushed me into a gilded cage. Enjoy your old age. Those words sounded like a gentle farewell to my freedom. I looked around the new kitchen. Everything was clean, shiny, and modern, but inside me something had just been taken away. Something invisible, but very important. Trust. 3 months after moving to the new house in San Jose, I began to realize I was no longer a mother or a grandmother in that home. I was an indispensable part of everything that went on, but not in the role I had hoped for. Every morning, I got up early to make breakfast for the whole family. As soon as the two children sat down at the table, Jennifer was already ready to grab her bag and head out the door. Some days, she would turn back, look at me, and speak in a tone that sounded no different from a command. Mom, this afternoon, Michael and I have a dinner meeting with clients. Please make dinner and watch the kids for me. Thank you, Mom. The words, thank you, came out as quickly as a reflex. There was no eye contact, no smile, and certainly no gratitude. It was like pressing a familiar button on a machine. I stood there holding a plate of fruit, feeling empty inside. When Michael came downstairs, buttoning his shirt, he asked as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Mom, where is my white shirt? Get it for me. It is only really clean and smells nice when you wash it. I walked over to the washing machine, picked up the white shirt, folded it, and set it on the table. The movements were familiar, but my heart felt as heavy as stone. Every day I cleaned, cooked, watched the children, did the laundry, even scrubbed the bathroom. I did everything without a word of complaint and without receiving a single dollar. Which made sense, I told myself, because I no longer had any right to ask for anything. I had already transferred all the money from the old house to my son. That old house was where Robert and I began our life, where my child was born, grew up, and left. Now I had traded it for a place as a full-time servant in the very home I had paid for. One afternoon, while I was washing dishes, I suddenly felt dizzy. My hand slipped, and a glass cup fell to the floor and shattered. The sound of breaking glass startled me. Jennifer stepped out from the living room. She looked at the shards on the floor, then glanced at me, her voice light but sharp. "Mom, that was a crystal glass from Tiffany. It was expensive. Let me clean it up, or you will cut your hand." I stepped back and pressed myself against the sink. Her voice felt like a slap. Not because of the glass, but because of the way she looked at me, as if I were clumsy and bothersome. Not a single question about whether I was all right. A few days later, when I took Jacob to the nearby park to get some fresh air, we happened to run into Susan, the neighbor who lived next door. She was a cheerful woman who often came out to water her plants in the morning. When she saw me, she gave me a bright smile and started talking right away. "Margaret, the other day I saw your Jennifer telling her friend that the whole family is going to Hawaii for a long vacation. You are really blessed. A successful son and daughter-in-law who make sure to take care of their parents." I stood there in silence as I listened. My eyes were on Jacob skipping around, still holding the string of his little kite. Only one word sounded in my mind: Hawaii. They had told me the whole family was going to Lake Tahoe. They had warned me there would be no cell service up there. They had told me to stay home, watch the house, and not worry. I forced a smile for Susan, nodded to let it pass, then led Jacob back home. Every step felt like walking on sharp gravel. In that moment, I no longer saw the blue sky or felt the cool breeze. I saw only one thing clearly. They had been planning this for a long time, and in that plan, there was no place for me. None at all. That night, just as I turned off the light in the living room to go upstairs to bed, a strange sound came from the hallway. Voices arguing. Jennifer's voice was high and shrill, each word slicing through the still air. I froze, standing behind the half-closed door of Michael and Jennifer's bedroom. The dim light from the crack in the doorway fell across my hands, which were trembling slightly. Jennifer was speaking, her voice sharp and piercing, each word forced out. "What is your plan? Wait until the last minute before the flight to tell her. Can you not see she is nothing but a burden?" I held my breath, my heart pounding in my chest. Michael answered softly, almost pleading. "Calm down. She is my mother." But Jennifer shouted, her voice full of irritation. "Mother? What mother? She has already used up all her money. What is the point of dragging an old woman all the way to Hawaii? If we have money to buy her a ticket, why not buy the Hermes bag I want instead?" I stood there frozen. Every word felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I waited for my son to object. Waited for him to say that she was not allowed to talk about his mother like that. But behind the door, there was only silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. I wanted to believe he was thinking, that he needed time to answer. Yet second after second passed, and not a single word came out. That silence said everything. It did not only disappoint me, it made my heart go numb with pain. Jennifer spoke again, her voice cold and calculating. "Your silence means you agree. Tomorrow tell her we are going to Lake Tahoe. Do you hear me? Do not soften up." I stepped back, my hand gripping the stair railing. My head was spinning. Every word from Jennifer felt like a blow straight to my heart. A burden. Her money is gone. Why bring her along and cause trouble? Those sentences rang in my mind, repeating over and over like a verdict. I swallowed hard and felt a sharp ache in my chest. Michael's silence was even more cruel than his wife's bitter words. It was the final confirmation that I had lost my son. He no longer saw me as his mother. I stood there for a long time, not knowing how many minutes passed. When I finally walked back to my room, I moved like a shadow. Each step felt unbearably heavy. I sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at my trembling hands. My love, my sacrifices, in their eyes, were worth no more than a bundle of convenient services. A cook, a babysitter, a wallet that once held value, now reduced to an empty shell called Mom. My stream of memories stopped the moment I heard an engine start up outside the front gate. I left the house in San Jose on Monday morning. The sky was overcast and a light breeze brushed through my hair as I stepped out of the taxi in front of Eleanor's apartment. She was already waiting at the door, hand on the knob, eyes brimming with tears. I walked in carrying very little, just a small suitcase with a few changes of clothes and a folder of documents. Eleanor's kitchen felt warm and homey, the gentle smell of toast drifting through the air. I sat down on a chair with a cup of hot coffee in front of me and a blue notebook. I rested my hand on the cover and kept it there for a moment. I was no longer as shaken as I had been 3 days earlier. The initial shock had settled. In its place was a clarity I had never felt before. Eleanor sat across from me, looking at me with eyes full of anger and sympathy. My God, they really did that. They lied to you, abandoned you, and took your assets. Unbelievable. I looked at her, my voice low but firm. Ellie, crying or falling into despair will not fix anything now. I need your help. I have to take back what belongs to me. I opened the notebook and started writing down every item I had personally bought for the house in San Jose. One line at a time. The large Samsung television in the living room. The brown leather sofa set I picked out on a trip to Costco. The big double-door refrigerator. The washer and dryer set in the laundry room. The dining table with 6 chairs I ordered from an online store. I listed everything. I did not skip a thing. I did not hesitate. The pain inside me had turned into a new kind of energy. A cold, clear current of energy. I was no longer the old mother sitting and waiting for scraps of pity from her children. I was a woman standing up to claim justice for herself. The next morning, Eleanor took me to see Mr. Harrison. He was a retired attorney with silver hair and sharp, knowing eyes. He sat in a small office, a bookshelf behind him filled with volumes on real estate law. He looked over the summary of the case, then turned to me. Mrs. Margaret, this is fraud and financial abuse. Do you still have any supporting documents? I opened my suitcase and took out a neatly bound file. These are the bank statements and transfer confirmations. They clearly show that I transferred all the money from the sale of my old house into an account under Michael's name. I also printed out the emails Michael once sent me. In them, he used phrases like joint investment, buying a house together, and commitment to joint ownership. Mr. Harrison nodded. Good. Very good. Now you need evidence of the specific assets you purchased. That very afternoon, Eleanor and I went back to the house in San Jose. I knew for sure no one would be home at that hour. I brought my phone and turned on the video camera. I walked through each room. The living room, the kitchen, the laundry room, the children's room. I filmed every item, saying its name and the date it was bought. I bent down to record the serial number on the television. I opened a cabinet to take out printed receipts from my email. I photographed the dining table, the oven, and even the set of pots and pans I had ordered online. Every step I took in that house felt like reclaiming one more piece of the dignity that had been taken from me. That night, Eleanor and I sat down together. On the table were the asset list, videos, photos, receipts, and all the old emails. I called a large moving company. I explained everything clearly. I need you to go to this address. Move all the items on the list I provide to the storage unit I have rented. I will be there to supervise. If anyone asks, just tell them the true owner of these belongings has requested that they be moved. Eleanor clapped her hands, her eyes shining. That is right. That is exactly what you should do. Go ahead. If anything happens, I will come over and give them a lesson. They think an old lady is that easy to push around. I smiled for the first time in months. Not because I had won anything back yet, but because I felt I was taking control of my life again. I was no longer a victim. I was no longer passive. I was someone standing up and taking back what belonged to her. For the first time, I felt free. And for the first time, I knew I was not afraid anymore. That Wednesday morning, the sky was a clear blue without a single cloud. I stood in front of the house in San Jose, the place that had once been called a home for 3 generations. A large truck was parked across the driveway, the moving company's logo printed clearly on the white side. The crew in uniform stepped out one by one, carrying boxes, tables, chairs, the television, the refrigerator, all according to the list I had carefully written out beforehand. I stood in the yard with a clipboard in hand, my eyes never leaving each item as it was carried out of the house. I pointed at the Samsung television mounted in the living room and spoke in a clear voice. I bought this one, take it. The crew leader nodded. Yes, ma'am. Understood. The sounds of traffic, of clattering furniture and hurried footsteps drew the curiosity of more than a few neighbors who came out to see what was happening. I saw Susan from across the street walking over, still holding her watering can. She looked around, confusion in her eyes. Margaret, what is going on? Are you moving somewhere? And where are your children and grandchildren? I turned to her, my voice calm, as if I were talking about something that had happened long ago. They are in Hawaii, having a good time. As for me, I am just moving my things out. As soon as I finished speaking, the phone in my pocket started to vibrate. Jennifer's name appeared on the screen. I hit answer and turned on the speaker, holding the phone up so everyone could hear. Jennifer's voice shrieked through the line. What on earth are you doing in my house? How dare you go into my house without permission? You let strangers in to take what? I kept my eyes on the refrigerator being wheeled out, my voice cool and measured. This house is half mine. My money. I am taking back the things I bought. Is there a problem? Jennifer screamed from the other end. Have you lost your mind? If the things are in my house, they are mine. Do you have any papers to prove otherwise? Go home. Stop making a spectacle of yourself in front of the neighbors. I answered her, each word as clear as a formal accusation. I have all the invoices and receipts, and you? What do you have to prove that you did not trick me into selling my house and take my money? You chose Hawaii instead of your mother, so stay there. Stop calling just to yell at me. Michael's voice suddenly cut in, tight with frustration. Mom, how could you do this? Are you not thinking about the kids? If you take everything, where are we supposed to live when we come back? You are being heartless. I laughed, not because I was amused, but because I was finally hearing real panic in my son's voice. So you do know what it feels like to be afraid of losing your house and your things. And me, an old woman you see as a burden, someone you were willing to abandon and deceive, does that not count as cruel? Jennifer screamed, her voice shaking with anger. Do not you dare act like some saint. I did not let her finish. I firmly pressed the button and hung up. A silence fell, heavy and sharp like a blade. Yet inside I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Right then, a gray car pulled up in front of the gate. Eleanor stepped out, her face set, her eyes blazing with anger. She strode into the yard, turned to the neighbors who had gathered, and raised her voice. You all heard that, right? Her daughter-in-law just called and yelled at her mother-in-law like she was scolding a child. They tricked this old lady into selling her house, took all the money to buy a new one. Then they abandoned her and went off to Hawaii together. Ungrateful does not even begin to describe it. Eleanor turned to the moving crew and pointed at the list on the clipboard. Keep working, She is the real owner of these things. I guarantee it. If there is any problem, I will take responsibility." Her clear, forceful words rang out in the yard, and no one argued. I looked around. The curious looks from earlier had turned into glances of sympathy. Some people shook their heads. Others let out a quiet sigh. For the first time in many years, I no longer felt like I was standing alone. I had a voice. I had evidence. And I had the truth. More important than all of that, I had Eleanor by my side. And this time, I was not going to back down. 5 days after the move in San Jose, I was sitting in the kitchen of my new apartment in San Francisco. Across the table sat Patricia, a new friend I had made in the building. She was pouring more coffee into my cup, talking and smiling softly. Light from the window poured in, spreading across the small wooden table. I thought I might finally be able to feel truly at peace for a while. The phone rang. Once, then twice, then 3 times. Patricia frowned and pointed at the phone lying beside me. "Margaret, your phone." I glanced at it, took a sip of coffee, and answered casually. "Yes, leave it. It is probably just another spam call." I knew very well it was not. On the screen, familiar names kept appearing. Michael, 5 missed calls. Jennifer, 8. 5 other unknown numbers I guessed were relatives on their side. 18 calls in total in just 2 hours. I set the phone back down on the table, my face unchanged. Each time it rang, I did not answer. I let it vibrate in the silence. Every time the ringing stopped, it was another small cut into the confusion and fear they themselves had once meant for me. They had come back. Back to an empty house. No dining table, no bed, no television, no refrigerator. Nothing left of what I had once quietly built up. Now they must surely understand what helplessness feels like. The next morning, Patricia and I went to the supermarket near the building. As we stepped into the lobby, I noticed a few glances from a group of residents standing near the entrance. They stopped talking when they saw me. One woman looked me up and down, then turned away. No one said hello. When we returned and got into the elevator, Patricia leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Margaret, I think someone is spreading bad rumors about you. They are saying you ran away from home with someone else and then came back and stole your son's things while he was gone." I was not surprised. I only sighed. I had already guessed. When they could not reach me, they turned to smearing my name. As soon as she finished speaking, the elevator doors opened on my floor. Patricia and I stepped out together, but the scene in front of us made me stop in my tracks. Michael and Jennifer were standing in front of my apartment door. The 2 children stood beside them, their eyes dull and vacant. The whole family was sloppily dressed, clothes wrinkled, their faces haggard as if they had just survived a disaster. The moment she saw me, Jennifer ran over, tears and mucus all over her face. She dropped to her knees and grabbed my legs. "Mom, I was wrong. Please forgive me. But you were so cruel. You took everything and left our house empty. My children have no beds to sleep in. Do you want me to just die? Is that it?" Her voice climbed higher and higher, her sobs echoing all along the 4th floor hallway. Doors nearby began to crack open. I stood still, looking down at my daughter-in-law putting on a performance so shameless that even the neighbors must have felt a chill. No bed to sleep on, no table to eat at, no refrigerator to keep the baby's milk cold. I knew those lines had been carefully prepared. But I was no longer the soft-hearted woman I had been 6 months earlier. I no longer believed in the tears of someone who had called me a burden and quietly abandoned me on Thanksgiving Day. I glanced at Patricia. She said nothing, but I could clearly see her eyes grow colder. I understood that from this moment on, the truth was on my side, and I no longer needed to say much. I turned away and took out my keys to unlock the door. Jennifer was still sobbing behind me. But inside, I no longer felt any pain. Each sob was, to me, nothing more than a belated echo from people whose shamelessness was thicker than the walls I had once called family. I opened the apartment door and stood up straight, looking directly at the couple in front of me. My face was expressionless, but my eyes were cold as ice. Behind me stood Patricia, arms folded across her chest, her sharp gaze like an invisible shield. Michael was the first to speak. His voice was full of blame, trying to sound calm, but clearly showing his confusion. "Mom, how could you do this? You listened to outsiders and now you are breaking up our family's happiness. Do you not think of your grandchildren?" I looked straight into his eyes, my voice calm but sharp. Family happiness. The happiness you built by tricking me into selling my house and then leaving me alone on Thanksgiving while you all went to Hawaii. You plan to tell everyone that I am the bad one, do you not? Jennifer stepped forward, her face twisted with tension. She lifted her chin, her voice so bitter and sharp it made my skin crawl. We went to Hawaii because of Michael's work, not for some vacation. You are old now. Do you even understand anything? And since you were living with us, everything you bought was for the whole family? Now that you have taken it all, you are robbing your own grandchildren. I stared at Jennifer. I took a step forward, my eyes never leaving her face. My voice was steely, not loud, but clear in every word. You stop that lying tone right now. Tell everyone here this. When did your flight to Hawaii leave? Was it not on the night before you lied and said you were going to Lake Tahoe? I pointed at Jennifer, then looked over at Michael. You planned to abandon me 3 months ago, when you told Michael that I was nothing but a burden and that my money was already gone. I heard every word. And I have full bank statements, recordings, and written proof of your fraud. Michael's face flushed red and his hands clenched. He shouted, "Stop making things up, Mom. You are old and confused. Who would ever treat their own mother like that?" I turned to look at my son, my eyes not blinking. My voice was low but firm. The ungrateful child here is you. Your silence when your wife called me a burden was worse than anything she said. You did not speak, which means you agreed. You want to play the victim and badmouth your own mother. Fine. I will take all the evidence to court. I will hand it to the press so everyone can see who you and your wife really are. For now, get out of my sight. The air in the hallway felt like it had turned solid. Michael and Jennifer stood there frozen, unable to say a word. Both of their faces were chalk white. Neighbors opened their doors to look out. Some covered their mouths in shock. Others shook their heads in tired disgust. I did not need to say anything more. I simply stepped back and closed the door in their faces. The slap I gave them was not with my hand. It was with the truth, with evidence, and with the self-respect I had finally taken back for myself. And I knew that this time, there was no way for them to deny what they had done. I do not remember exactly what time it was when the first pounding on the door began. At first, I thought it was just someone drunk knocking on the wrong apartment. But the pounding grew louder and more violent. Then came the shouting, the cursing. A man's voice rang out in the hallway. What kind of old woman thinks she can steal her kids' money? Open the door. If you do not, we will break it down and burn this place. I jolted upright, my heart thudding in my chest. Before I could catch my breath, another voice roared. If you have money, bring it out here. If you do not, Drag your old body out and pay your debt." I stepped quietly toward the door, without turning on the lights and without making a sound. I was not panicking. I was shaking, but I was clear-headed. I took out my phone and turned on the camera. I bent down and slid it through the crack of the door. I recorded everything. The two men standing right outside my door, faces flushed red, neck veins bulging as they shouted, hands raised in threat. One of them was holding something that looked like a club. I pressed the button to call 911 and held the phone to my ear. I lowered my voice to the softest level and pronounced each word clearly. "There are two men pounding on my door. They are shouting and threatening to burn my home. I am at number 51. I need help immediately." I still held the phone in one hand and the camera in the other. Only one thought ran through my mind. They had crossed the line. They had used strangers in the middle of the night to threaten to kill their own mother. From that moment on, whatever bond of blood we had was trampled by their own hands without a shred of mercy. The police arrived quickly. Sirens wailed in the street below, and beams of flashlights swept down the hallway. I opened the door a crack and handed the video I had just recorded to the first officer who stepped in. They subdued the two men in just a few minutes. One of them still struggled and resisted, but he was soon handcuffed and taken away. The next morning, I got a call from the police asking me to come to the station to give a statement. I went with my lawyer. In my hands were the video of the threats, the statements from the two men who had been arrested, and the full file of evidence showing how I had been deceived and stripped of my assets. In the interrogation room, Jennifer sat with her head bowed. Michael sat next to her, his face drained of all color. The officer asked directly, "Jennifer, do you admit that you hired these two men to threaten Mrs. Margaret, your mother-in-law, last night?" Jennifer looked up, her face pale, her lips trembling. "No, sir. I only asked them to go and talk to her calmly. I did not know they would go that far." I cut in, my voice cold. "Talk to me calmly in the middle of the night, with threats to burn my home and kill me. You can just watch the video I recorded and see for yourself." The officer picked up the written statements from the two men who had been arrested and nodded. Faced with evidence they could not deny, there was no way out for them. Both of them were taken into custody, while the charges of making terrorist threats and serious harassment were investigated. I did not say anything more. I stood up, picked up my file, and walked out of the room. The lightness I felt was not from any sense of triumph, but from knowing that justice had finally spoken. And I knew that from this moment on, the people who had once been my own flesh and blood had truly become strangers. 2 days after the police decided to hold them, I received a call from an unknown number. I looked at the screen and knew exactly who it was. I still pressed accept, because I wanted to hear for myself what I had already sensed before. On the other end, Michael's voice came first. It no longer had the raised tone from the day in the hallway. Now it was a drawn-out, weak whisper. "Mom, I am begging you. I was wrong. Please withdraw the complaint. I am begging you. If you do not, we are finished. I am your only son." I did not answer. I listened quietly, holding the phone a little away from my ear. Not because I wanted to hear more clearly, but because I did not want that voice pressed up against my heart ever again. Jennifer jumped in immediately. Her voice was choked, the tears obvious in every word. "Mom, I was foolish. I was stupid. I really was wrong. Please forgive me. I promise I will make it up to you. I will take care of you for the rest of your life. Think of the children. If their parents go to prison, they will be orphans. Can you really live with that?" I looked straight out the window. The San Francisco sky was a pale gray, clouds drifting slowly by. Inside, there was no pain left, only clarity. They were not sorry. They were afraid. Afraid of paying the price. Afraid of losing their freedom. Afraid of losing their reputation. But not afraid of losing their mother. Even now, they were still using motherhood to manipulate me. They still thought I was the same old woman as before, who would soften at the word grandchildren and let go at the word only. But no, I lifted the phone to my ear. I spoke slowly, my voice calm as if I were reading out a final statement. You were wrong, and you must face the consequences. Whatever you now face under the law is your choice, not mine. Do not call me again. From this moment on, our bond as mother and child is over. I did not wait for a reaction on the other end. I ended the call myself. This time, I was not just ending a phone call. I was shutting off an entire painful past. I was cutting every tie that had once made me bend and grovel, that had cost me my property, my reputation, and my trust. I opened my contacts. I deleted Michael's number. I blocked Jennifer's. Then I blocked the unknown numbers that had called earlier. Each action was one more step out of the dark corner of my life. I knew that this time I would not go back. This break was complete. And it was the beginning of a new life, one without schemes, fake tears, or empty promises. There was only me, with myself, and that was enough. One morning in the middle of the month, as I was sitting in the living room reading, the phone rang. The caller was a distant cousin on my husband's side. Her voice rushed and full of worry. Margaret, it is Michael. He is in critical condition. He is in the main hospital. The doctors say he is severely exhausted and unconscious. He keeps calling your name. You have to come right away before it is too late. I sat in silence for a moment. Even after preparing myself in every way, a mother's heart still wavered. I did not fully believe it, but I could not ignore it either. I called Eleanor and the attorney Mr. Harrison had recommended. Both agreed to come with me immediately. I needed them as witnesses. I needed them so that if this turned out to be just another performance, at least I would not be alone. We walked into the hospital room just before noon. The air inside was heavy in a way that felt deliberate. Michael lay on the bed, his skin pale, his eyes closed tight. Beside the bed was Jennifer, on her knees, clutching the two children, tears streaming down her face. The moment she saw me, she burst into loud sobs, dragging the children's crying along with her like a wretched chorus. Mom, please forgive Michael. He has fallen apart because he misses you, because he is full of regret. Look at him. All he wants is your forgiveness. How can you be so heartless, Mom? Michael opened his eyes then, his voice weak and broken, as if each breath were a struggle. Mom, I am sorry. I just want your forgiveness. Once. Then he went limp, pretending to faint. I did not say anything. I just stood still, looking around. Michael's breathing was not heavy like someone in pain. His face relaxed the moment he pretended to pass out, instead of tightening the way a sick person's would. I caught Jennifer's eyes. She glanced at me, then quickly turned away, but I clearly saw the measuring, calculating look in her gaze. I realized everything was being staged, and clumsily at that. I did not say a single word in the hospital. I left an hour later without a goodbye, but I was not silent. I was ready for what came next. A few days later, I contacted the building management. I booked a meeting room and invited all the relatives, old friends, and close neighbors. I wanted to end everything with the truth. That day, the meeting room was packed. Everyone was curious, many whispering to one another. I walked in, not rushing, not raising my voice. I stood in the middle of the room, the screen behind me already set up, I looked around once, then spoke calmly. I know many of you think I am a heartless mother who abandoned her son on his deathbed. So today, I have invited you here to hear the truth together. I pressed the remote. On the screen appeared a photo of Michael having dinner with friends at a restaurant in downtown San Francisco. The picture had been taken exactly 2 days ago, at the very time he was supposedly lying unconscious in the hospital. In the photo, he was laughing loudly, glass raised, his face full of color. Next came an audio recording of a phone call between Jennifer and a friend. Just fake the illness and make it look really bad. That old woman softens up so easily. Once she sees her son about to die, she will fold right away. I switched to the most recent recording, the one they made when they thought I had already left the hospital. Michael, the old woman has gone home. She probably believes it now. Later, make sure you really act it out, and remember to demand the hospital bills and emotional damages. The room fell completely silent. A few relatives who had once scolded me now lowered their heads, faces flushed red. They did not dare look up at me. Some neighbors shook their heads. A few whispered, their eyes fixed on Michael and Jennifer, as if they had just watched the masks of 2 con artists fall off. I did not need to say anything more. Everything was clear, and for the first time, I felt that silence was the loudest kind of victory. The truth does not need to shout. It only needs to be revealed. And today, it had been laid bare for everyone to see. Michael and Jennifer arrived when the meeting was almost over. Neither of them could keep up the fake faces anymore. Everything had been exposed, and this time they did not bother to act. Jennifer was the first to lose control. She screamed in the middle of the crowded room. Yes, we faked the illness. So what? Who told you to humiliate us? Who gave you the right to take everything out of the house and leave us suffering like this? You have to take responsibility. You have to compensate us. I stared at her without blinking. Before I could answer, Michael pushed in. His face was bright red, his eyes filled with anger, but deep inside them was panic. You have killed whatever bond we had as mother and child. Are you happy now? You wanted to win, did you not? If you have any humanity left, give us the money. Give it to us once and for all. Then we will disappear. I stood up. From the beginning of the meeting until that moment, I had only sat, watched, listened, and spoken with restraint. But now I felt there was no need to hold anything back. I looked straight into both of their eyes. In mine, there was no more pain, only the cold resolve of someone who had lived through more than enough cruelty. My silence was not weakness. I kept silent because I wanted to give you enough time to expose yourselves. And you did, even more perfectly than I could have hoped. I turned my head and looked at the people sitting around the room. They were neighbors, relatives, old friends. Everyone had seen, everyone had heard exactly what had just happened. In the presence of everyone here today, I, Margaret Elizabeth Wilson, solemnly declare this. From this moment on, I no longer have a son named Michael. All blood ties are, from this very moment, officially severed. I did not speak quickly, and I did not raise my voice. Yet every word was clear, hanging in the air like a sworn oath. I went on. All the evidence of fraud, defamation, and extortion I will hand over to the authorities. I have no need to hold anything back anymore. You will face the consequences of your own choices. And from today on, go live your own lives. Do not ever step into mine again. This is the last time I will speak of either of you. I did not wait for them to answer. I turned and walked out of the meeting room. Behind me were whispers, sighs, a few tearful looks, and 2 people standing there in shock in the very room where they once believed they could manipulate everyone. I did not look back. A few months later, I moved to a small coastal town. I lived in a little house with a garden full of sunlight. In the early mornings, I listened to the birds sing. In the afternoons, I watered my plants. And at night, I lay reading under a soft yellow lamp. I no longer carried the past with me, no longer clung to anything. I had cut out the cancer in my own life. And at last, I found the true peace I had lost for so many years. Maybe you are in a situation like mine, betrayed, dismissed, taken advantage of. Remember this: forgiving does not mean you have to stay. Sometimes letting go is the strongest way to keep your self-respect and find your way back to peace. If this story speaks to you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the Revenge Diary channel, and turn on notifications so you will not miss the next stories, where women refuse to suffer in silence and justice is reclaimed through their own clarity and courage.